bring up the cameras and welcome everyone to another Sunday night edition of Accessibly Live, the book club reading room. Hope everyone's having a good night tonight. Tonight, welcome to the library. The source of knowledge, the source of fun, the source of inspiration. Welcome to the book club reading room and the library. Hope you're all doing well. Hope everyone's having a great week, great weekend. Whenever you're getting a chance to watch this, I am Joel K. This is the book club reading room where we read public domain books live here on Twitch and also in continuation on YouTube. And I'm glad to have you all here with me. Tonight we've got some fun books, short stories for you. We are going to delve back into Rudyard Kipling tonight. We have 3 short stories, and all 3 are fun short stories. And they're things that we've read. I had read to nieces and nephews, ones that were read to me growing up. This is what helped give me my love of books and reading. All 3 are from the fertile imagination of Rudyard Kipling. Rudyard Kipling was a man who lived at the time of the British colonization of many countries, including India. He is best known for his work with Rikki Tikki Tavi, the White Seal. He wrote Mowgli and his brothers. He wrote the Jungle Book. And we've all seen the Jungle Book in one iteration or another. Joseph Rudyard Kipling was born December 30th, 1865, and passed away at a very old age, very wonderful age, on January 18th, 1936. He saw a great deal of the world change. He saw the 20th century arrive, and he brought his imagination in along with it. And we've been enjoying his books ever since. Kipling was one of those who did marvelous works. His works ranged from the observation of life in British-controlled India to life in general. In 1907, his literary work achieved the ultimate goal, a Nobel Peace Prize in literature. His stories are still captivating to many, and what he's created is pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Where you get started, one of the things I remind everybody to do, email right here. Give me a yell. Let me know where you guys are watching from. I've got people writing in saying hello from down south in Texas to Vancouver to the Philippines, everywhere in between, and I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody who's watching, tuning in, and enjoying the books. And this is what we do here. This is all public domain books where we read public domain to you. Just like it was when the librarian, we would go gather at the library. The librarian would gather us in a circle and we would read. He or she would read to the students. And it was fun. And we're going to do that tonight, but I want to remind everybody, when you get a chance, to please like and subscribe to the channel. It makes, as much as I don't really pay attention to the algorithm, it's nice having a few more people tuning in and enjoying the books. But right now, let's get started with Rudyard Kipling short stories. The first one, How the Camel Got His Hump, here on Accessibly Live, the book club reading room. In the beginning of years, when the world was so new and all the animals were just beginning to work for man, there was a camel, and he lived in the middle of the howling desert because he did not want to work. Besides, he was a howler himself, so he ate sticks and thorns and tamarisks and milkweed and prickles, most excruciating ideal. And when anybody spoke to him, he said, harumph, just humph, and no more. Presently, the horse came to him on Monday morning with a saddle on his back and a bit in his mouth, and said, "Oh, camel, camel, come out and trot like the rest of us." "Humph," said the camel, and the horse went away and told the man. Presently, the dog came to him with a stick in his mouth and said, "Camel, oh camel, come and fetch and carry like the rest of us." "Humph," the camel said, and the dog went away and told the man. Presently, the ox came to him with a yoke on his neck and said, "Camel, oh camel, come and plow like the rest of us." "Humph," said the camel, and the ox went away and told the man. At the end of the day, the man called the horse and the dog and the ox together and said, "Three, oh three, I am very sorry for you, with the world so all and new. But the hump thing in the desert can't work, or he would have been here by now. So I am going to leave him alone, and you must work double time to make up for it." That made the three very angry, with the world so new and all. And they held a palaver and indaba and punchiet and a powwow and on the edge of the desert, and the camel came chewing on milkweed, most excruciating ideal, and laughed at them. Then he said, "Humph," and went away again. Presently there came along a djinn in charge of all deserts, rolling in a dust cloud. The djinns always traveled that way because it's magic. And he stopped to palaver and powwow with the three. "The djinn of all the deserts," said the horse, "is it right for anyone to be idle with the world so new and all?" "Certainly not," said the djinn. "Well," said the horse, "there is something in the middle of your howling desert, and he is a howler himself. With a long neck and long legs, he hasn't done a stroke of work since Monday morning, and he won't trot." "Who?" said the djinn, whistling. "That's my camel, for all the gold in Arabia. What does he say about it?" "He says, 'Humph,'" said the dog, "and he won't fetch and carry." "Does he say anything else?" "Only humph, and he won't plow," said the ox. "Very good," said the djinn. "I'll hump him if you will kindly wait a minute." The djinn rolled himself up in his dust cloak and took a bearing across the desert, and found the camel most excruciatingly idle, looking at his own reflection in a pool of water. "My long and bubbling friend," said the djinn, "what's this I hear that your work doing no work, with the world all new and all?" "Humph," said the camel. The djinn sat down, with his chin in his hand, and began to think of magic, great magic, while the camel looked at his own reflection in a pool of water. "You've given the three extra work ever since Monday morning, all on account of your excruciating idleness," said the djinn, and he went on thinking magics with his chin in his hand. "Humph," said the camel. "I shouldn't say that again if I were you," said the djinn. "You might say it once too often. Bubbles, I want you to work." The camel said, "Humph," again. But no sooner has he said it than he saw his back, with that which was great proud of, puffing up and puffing up into a great big walloping hump. Do you see that? Said the djinn. That is your own hump, that which you brought upon your very own self by not working. Today is Thursday, and you've done no work since Monday, when the work began. Now you're going to work. That made a purpose, said the djinn, all because you missed those days of work. You will be able to work now for 3 days without eating because you can live on your hump. And don't you ever say I never did anything for you. Come out of the desert and go to the tree and behave. Hump yourself. The camel humped himself and humped all and went away to join the three. From that day to this, the camel wears a hump. We call it a hump now, not to hurt his feelings. But he was never yet caught up with the 3 days he had missed at the beginning of the world. And he has never yet learned how to behave. The camel's hump is an ugly lump, which you well may see at the zoo. But uglier yet is the hump we get from having too little to do. Kiddies and grown-ups to do, if they haven't enough to do. We all get a hump, camellia's hump that is black. We climb out of bed with a frowsly head and a gnarly, yarly voice. We shiver and scowl and we grunt and we growl at our bath and our boots and our toys. And there ought to be a corner for me. I know there's one for you. When we get the hump, the camellia's hump, a hump that is black. The cure for this ill is not to sit still or frowst with a book by the fire, but to take a large hoe and shovel also, and dig till you're generally perspire. And then you will find that the sun and the wind and the djinn of the garden too have lifted the hump, the horrible hump, the hump that is black. I get it well as you, if I haven't done enough to do. We all get the hump, camellia's hump, kitties and grown-ups. Hope you enjoyed that. That was the first of 3 Rudyard Kipling short stories, How the Camel Got His Hump. The next one, I think I'm going to skip things around a little bit. I want to continue with How the Rhinoceros Got His Skin. Here on Accessibly Live, the book club reading. How the Rhinoceros Got His Skin. Once upon a time, on an uninhabited island on the shores of the Red Sea, there lived a Parsee, from whose hat the rays of the sun were reflected in more than oriental splendor. And the Parsee lived by the Red Sea with nothing but his hat and his knife and his cooking stove, of kind that you must particularly never touch. Then one day he took flour and water and currants and plums and sugar and things, and made himself one cake which was 2 feet across and 3 feet. It was indeed a superior combustible, that's magic, and he put it on a stove because he was allowed to cook on the stove. And he baked it until it was done, brown and smelt most sentimental. But just as he was going to eat it, there came down to the beach from the altogether uninhabited interior one rhinoceros with a horn on his nose, two piggy eyes, and few manners. In those days, a rhinoceros's skin fitted him quite tight. There were no wrinkles in it anywhere. He looked exactly like a Noah's Ark rhinoceros, but of course, much bigger. All the same, he had no manners then, and he has no manners now, and he may never have any manners. He said, "How?" to the and the Pharisee left the cake and climbed up on top of a palm tree with nothing on but his hat, which the rays of the sun were always reflected in a more than oriental splendor. And the rhinoceros upset the oil stove with his nose, and the cake rolled on the sand, and he spiked the cake on his horn with his nose, and he ate it. And he went away, waving his tail to the desolate and exclusively uninhabited interior, which abouts on the islands of Mazdarine, Skostra, and promontories of the larger equinox. Then the Parsee came down from his palm tree, put the stove on its legs, recited the following sloka, which you may not have heard. I will now proceed to relate. Them that takes cakes, which the Parsee man breaks, makes dreadful mistakes. And there was a great deal more in it than that you would think, because 5 weeks later, there was a heat wave on the Red Sea, and everybody took off all their clothes they had. The Parsee took off his hat, but the rhinoceros took off his skin and carried it over his shoulder as he came down to the beach to bathe. In those days, it was buttoned underneath with 3 buttons and looked like a water. He said nothing whatsoever about the Pharisee's cake because he had eaten it all, and he never had any manners then, since and henceforth. He waddled straight into the water, blew bubbles through his nose, leaving his skin on. Presently, the Pharisee came by and found the skin, and he smiled one smile that ran around his face 2 times. Then he danced 3 times around the skin, rubbed his hands. Then he went to his camp, filled his hat with cake crumbs, for the Pharisee never ate anything but cake, and never swept out the camp. He took out the skin and shook the skin, and he scrubbed that skin, and he rubbed that skin, just as a full old dry, stale, sickly cake crumbs and some burnt currants as ever it could possibly hold. Then he climbed to the top of his palm tree and waited for the rhinoceros to come out of the water and put it on. And the rhinoceros did. He buttoned it up with 3 buttons, and it tickled like cake crumbs in bed. Then he wanted to scratch, but that made it worse. And then he laid down on the sands, and he rolled and he rolled and he rolled, and every time he rolled, the cake crumbs tickled him worse and worse and worse. Then he ran to the palm tree and rubbed and rubbed and rubbed himself against it. He rubbed so much and so hard that he rubbed his skin into a great fold over his shoulders and over under the fold where the buttons used to be. But he rubbed the buttons off. And he rubbed some more the folds over his legs, and it spoiled his temper, but it did not make the least difference to the cake crumbs. They were inside his skin, and they tickled. So he went home, very angry indeed, and horribly scratchy. From that day to this, every rhinoceros has great folds in his skin and a very bad temper, all on account of the cake crumbs inside. But the Pharisee came down from the palm tree, wearing his hat, from which the rays of the sun reflected in a more than oriental splendor, packed up his cooking stove, and went away into the direction of Ortavor, Amigalda, and the upland meadows of Anataravio, and the marshes of Sonaput. This uninhabited island is off Cape Gardufi, by the beaches of Socotora and the pink Arabian Sea. But it is too hot from Suez for the likes of you and me ever to go in a P and an O and call on the cake Pharisee. That fun little story, short story by the great Rudyard Kipling, how the rhinoceros got his. Now, the final short story for the evening. Fun little short story to follow the other two is how the leopard got his spots. Here on Accessibly Live, the book club reading. How the leopard got his spots. In the days when everyone started fair, best beloved, the leopard lived in a place called the High Veld. Remember, it wasn't a low veld, or the bush veld, or the sour veld, but it was exclusively bare and hot, shiny high veld, where there was sand and sandy colored rocks, and successfully tufts of sandy yellow grass. The giraffe and the zebra and the eland and the kudu and the hartebeest lived there, and they were exclusively sandy yellow brownish all over. But the leopard, he was all exclusively sandiest yellowish brownish of all, a grayish yellow caddy shaped kind of beast, and he matched the exclusive yellowish grayish brownish color of the high veld to one hair. This was very bad for the giraffe and the zebra and the rest of them, for he would lie down in the exclusively yellowish, grayish, brownish stone or clumps of grass where the giraffe or the zebra or the eland or the kudu or the bushbuck or the bontibuck came, and he would surprise them out of their jumpsome lives. He would indeed. He also, there was an Ethiopian with bows and arrows, exclusively yellowish, grayish, brownish, yellowish man. He was then, and he lived on the high veld with the leopard, and the two used to hunt together. The Ethiopian with his bows and arrows, and the leopard exclusively with his teeth and claws, till the giraffe and the eland and the kudu and the quagga and all the rest of them didn't know which way to jump. Best beloved, they didn't. After a long time, things lived forever so long in those days, they learned to avoid anything but that looked like a leopard or an Ethiopian, and bit by bit, the giraffe began it, because his legs were the longest. They went away from the high veld. They scuttled for days and days and days, till they came to the great forest, exclusively full of trees and bushes in stripy, speckly, patchy, blotchy shadows, and where they hid, and after a long time, with the standing half in the shade and the half out of, and what with the slippery, slidey shadows of the trees falling on them, the giraffe grew blotchy and the zebra grew stripy, and the eland and the kudu grew darker, with the little wavy gray lines on their backs like bark on the tree trunk. And so, though you could hear them and smell them, you could seldom see them. And then, only when you knew precisely where to look, they had a beautiful time in that exclusively speckly, spickly shadows of the forest, while the leopard and the Ethiopian ran about over the exclusively grayish, yellowish, reddish high veldt outside, wondering where all their breakfasts and their dinners and their teas had gone. At last, they were so hungry that they ate rats and beetles and rock rabbits and the leopard and the Ethiopian, and then they had a big tummy ache, both of them. And then they met the Bavian, the dog headed barking baboon, who is quite the wisest animal in all South Africa. Said leopard to the Bavian, and it was very hot day. Where have they all gone? The Bavian winked. He knew. Said the Ethiopian to the Bavian, can you help me the present habitat of the aboriginal fauna? That meant just the same thing, but the Ethiopian was always used long words. He was grown up. And the Bavian winked. He knew. Then the Bavian, the game is gone to another spots. And my advice to you, leopard, is to go into other spots as soon as you can. And the Ethiopian said, that's all fine, but I wish to know whether the aboriginal fauna has migrated. Then said the Bavian, the original fauna has joined the aboriginal flora because it is high time for a change. And my advice to you, Ethiopian, is to change as soon as you can. That puzzled the leopard and the Ethiopian, but they set off to look for the aboriginal flora, and presently, after so many days, they saw a great high, tall forest full of tree trunks, all exclusively speckled and spotted and spotted and dotted and splashed and slashed and hatched and cross-hatched with shadows. Say that quickly aloud, and you'll see how very shadowy the forest must have been. What is this? Said the leopard. That is so exclusively dark, and yet so full of little pieces of light. I don't know, said the Ethiopian, but it ought to be an aboriginal flora. I can smell giraffe, and I can hear giraffe, but I can't see giraffe. That is curious, said the leopard. I suppose it is because we have come out into the sunshine. I can smell zebra, I can hear zebra, but I can't see zebra. Wait a bit, said the Ethiopian. It's a long time since we have hunted them. Perhaps we've forgotten what they look like. Fiddle, said the leopard. I remember them perfectly on the high veldt, especially their marrow bones. Giraffe is about 17 feet high and of exclusively frivolous golden yellow from head to heel, and zebra is about 4.5 feet high and exclusively gray fawn color from head to heel. Said the Ethiopian, looking at the spickly shadows of the aboriginal flora forest. Then they ought to show up in this dark place like ripe bananas in a smokehouse. But they didn't. The leopard and the Ethiopian hunted all day, and though they could smell them and hear them, they never saw one of them. For goodness sake, said the leopard at tea time, let us wait until it gets dark. This daylight hunting is a perfect scandal. So they waited until dark. Then the leopard heard something breathing, sniffling in the starlight that fell all stripy through the branches, and he jumped at the noise. and it smelt like zebra, and it felt like zebra, and when he knocked it down and kicked like zebra, but he couldn't see it. So he said, "Be quiet, O you person without any form. I am going to sit on your head until morning, because there is something about you that I don't understand." Presently, he heard a grunt and a crash, and a scramble, and the Ethiopian called out, "I caught a thing that I can't see. It smells like giraffe, and it kicks like giraffe, but it hasn't any form." "Don't you trust it," said the leopard. "Sit on its head until morning, same as me. They haven't any form, any of them." So they sat on them hard until bright morning time, and then Leopard said, "What have you at the end of your table, brother?" The Ethiopian scratched his head and said, "It ought to be exclusively rich, flavorless orange tawny from head to heel, and it ought to be giraffe, but it is all covered over with chestnut blotches. What have you at the end of your table, brother?" The leopard scratched his head and said, "It ought to be exclusively delicate grayish fawn, and ought to be zebra, but it is covered all over with black and purple stripes. What in the world have you done to yourself, zebra? Don't you know that if you were on the high veld, I could see you 10 miles off? You haven't any form." "Yes," said the zebra, "but this isn't the high veld. Can't you see?" "I can now," said the leopard, but I couldn't at all yesterday. How is it done?" "Let us up," said the zebra, "and we will show you." They led up the zebra, and the giraffe get up, and the zebra moved away from some of the thorn bushes where the sunlight fell all stripy, and the giraffe moved off to some of the tallest trees where the shadows fell all blotchy. "Now watch," said the zebra and the giraffe. "This is the way it is done. One, two, three. And where's your breakfast?" Leopard stared, and the Ethiopian stared, but all they could see were stripy shadows and blotched shadows of the forest, and never a sign of zebra and giraffe, and they just walked off, hidden themselves in the shadowy forest. "Hi, hi," said the Ethiopian, "that's a trick worth learning. Take a lesson by it, leopard. You show up in this dark place like a bar of soap and a coal scuttle." "Ho, ho," said the leopard, "wouldn't it surprise you very much that you show up in this dark place like mustard plaster on a sack of coals?" "Well, calling names won't catch dinner," said the Ethiopian. "The long and the little of it is that we don't match our backgrounds. I'm going to take the Bavian's advice. He told me I ought to change, and I've got nothing to change except my skin. I'm going to change that." "To what?" said the leopard, tremendously excited. "To a nice working blackish brownish color with a little purple in it and touches of slaty blue. It will be the very thing for hiding in hollows and behind trees." So he changed his skin then and there, and the leopard was more excited than ever. He had never seen a man change his skin before. "But what about me?" he said when the Ethiopian worked the last little finger into his fine new skin. "You take Bavian's advice too. He told you to go into spots." "So I did," said the leopard. "I went into other spots as fast as I could. I went to this spot with you, and a lot of good it did me." "Oh," said the Ethiopian, "Bavian didn't mean spots in South Africa. He meant spots on your skin." "Think of the giraffe," said the Ethiopian. "Or if it prefers stripes, think of the zebra. They find their spots and stripes, give them pure feet satisfaction. Um, said the leopard. I wouldn't look like zebra, not forever so. Well, make up your mind, said the Ethiopian, because I hate to go hunting without you. But I must if I have to go on looking like a sunflower against a fence. I'll take spots then, said the leopard, but don't make them too vulgarly big. I wouldn't look like giraffe, not for so ever. I'll make them with tips of my fingers, said the Ethiopian. There's plenty of black left from the skin. Stand over. Then the Ethiopian took his 5 fingers close together. There was plenty of black left on the new skin, and he pressed them all over the leopard, and wherever the 5 fingers touched, they left 5 little black spots, all close together. You can see them on the leopard's skin as you like, best beloved. Sometimes the fingers slipped and the marks got a little blurred, but if you look closely at any leopard now, you will see that there are 5 spots off of 5 black fingers. Now you are beauty, said the Ethiopian. You can lie out on the bare ground and look like a heap of pebbles, and you can lie on the naked rocks and look like a piece of pudding stone. You can lie on the leafy branch and look like sunshine sifting through the leaves, and can lie right across the center of the path and look like nothing in particular. Think of that and purr. But if I'm all this, said the leopard, why didn't you go spotty too? Oh, this color is best for me, said the Ethiopian. Now come along and we'll see if we can't get even with Mr. 123. Where's your breakfast? So they went away and lived happily ever after, best beloved. That is all. Oh, and can you hear the grown ups now? Can they change their skins and spots again? I don't think grown ups ever would keep on saying such a silly thing if the leopard and the Ethiopian had done it once, did you? But they never will do it again, best beloved. They are quite content as they are. I am the wise Bavian, saying in most wise tones, let us melt into the landscape, just the two are lones. People have come in the carriage calling, but Mummy is there. Yes, I can go if you take me, nurse, says she don't care. Let us go up to the piggy sties and sit on the farmyard rails. Let's say things to the bunnies and watch them skitter their tails. Let's owe anything, Daddy, so long as you and me, and going so truly exploring and not being in till tea. Here are your boots, I brought them, and here's your cap and stick, and here's your pipe and tobacco. Oh, come along out of it quick. And that is the story how the leopard got his spots. And that are 3 short stories from the legendary Rudyard Kipling here on Accessibly Live, the book club reading room. Hope you enjoyed them. This is what we do every Sunday night live here on Twitch, and also on I will say rebroadcast, but on when we get on to YouTube. We do this on a regular basis every Sunday night here on Twitch and on YouTube, and I appreciate everybody stopping in. As I've said earlier, if you guys get a chance, take a moment and like and subscribe. I appreciate it. It would be a big help. Now, we've got something special next week. As we're running towards the end of the year, and we've got big announcements coming up for the channel here. We are going to do a couple more short stories, and keeping the idea going of some classic short stories, I have for you next week some classic stories from the Brothers Grimm. I'm looking forward to that. I hope you are too. I am Joel K. This is Accessibly Live, the book club reading room. I appreciate everybody stopping in. Welcome to the new, for those of you who've been following us for the last couple of years, welcome to our new digs. I'm kind of liking this. I'm liking having it in the library where we can do this on a regular basis. Sometimes we'll be back in the old studio, but from now on Sunday nights, and whenever you get a chance to watch this, I got books. And a lot of these books, unfortunately, aren't public domain, but we will continue to deliver some great public domain books for you to enjoy. We're going to get out of here, but before we go, the same thing we do on our Thursday night show. As you know, we wrap up our show with a final quote for the night. And I think you guys might like this. The path isn't a straight one. It's a spiral. You continually come back to things you thought you understood and see deeper truths. The path isn't a straight one, a straight line. It's a spiral. You continually come back to the things you thought you understood and you see deeper truths. We all do. We all do that. From all the craziness that we see through schoolwork, through daily work at our jobs, through interactions with people when things get confusing. We all get a little confused and we think when our path is straight, it isn't. We all do our best. We fumble, we fall on our face, and we get back up again, and we get back on the path. And then we make some revelations when we come back to something we thought we knew and we don't. It happens. It's part of growing up. It's part of learning at all ages. We do it. We're going to get out of here. Take care, everyone. Be well, be safe, be kind. Give somebody a helping hand when you see it. It's that time of year. This is the time of year when a lot of people, friends and family, are going through tough times. When stress gets to you. Be a friendly shoulder. It doesn't kill you. And it might be a big benefit to not only you, but your friends as well. We're going to get out of here. Take care. We will see you all next Sunday here on Accessibly Live, the book club reading room, where we're going to read a few more Grimm's Theory, Brothers Grimm. Take care, you guys. Bye-bye.